We are on air.
All righty. I call the 2341st meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. This meeting is being conducted by video conference. The public has been invited to participate in this meeting by joining the Zoom webinar or by watching the city's YouTube channel on Comcast Cable Channel 30 in city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to give oral testimony during today's meeting. If you're interested in speaking, please let staff know by emailing ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. When it's time to take public comment, staff will monitor the email inbox, the Zoom participant list, and the Zoom chat to see if anyone would like to speak. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. The public may submit written comments by email to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. Contamos con servicio de traducción al español cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad para reuniones por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Translation services are also available in other languages. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The city is accepting applications for the Milwaukee Leadership Academy, a free course to learn about local government. It's open to anyone, not just Milwaukee residents, who are a high school junior and older. Applications are due by September 12th. For more info, visit www.milwaukeeoregon.gov. If you have children between the ages of 0 and 5, you're invited to stop by the Letting Library to pick up early literacy bags. Bags include Play-Doh, a sensory bottle, shaker, and more. Bags are available at the children's desk while supplies last. The next open mic, Scott, hang on. Sorry. The next open mic and poetry reading takes place on Friday, September 10th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. on Zoom. If you're interested in the open mic, please contact Greg Chimoff by email. The event is recorded and available afterwards on the Letting Library's YouTube channel. Have you been wanting to upgrade your gas-powered yard tools? PGE is hosting an electric tool exchange on Sunday, September 12th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at City Hall during the Milwaukee Sunday Farmers Market. Community members can bring their gas-powered lawnmowers, leaf blowers, chainsaws, and trimmers to be recycled for free and to receive a gift card to purchase a new electric tool from Ace Hardware. Just be sure to empty all fluids from tools before bringing them to the exchange. Visit the city calendar to find the link to RSVP. Join the Milwaukee Parks Foundation and North Clackamas Watersheds Council, along with other partners, on Sunday, September 19th, from 1 to 4 for an afternoon of fun, games, music, and duck races. This is an educational event, and it's aimed at raising awareness about the Kellogg Dam and the development of Milwaukee Bay Park. Learn more at www.milwaukeeparksfoundation.org. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage, where you will find the city calendar at milwaukeeoregon.gov, or call 503-786-7555, and staff will provide you with information you need or connect you with someone who can help. Let's see, our next item are our proclamations. We have the American Legion Day, a proclamation, and this will be presented by Post 180 Commander Mike Wilson.
Mayor, I've asked Jerry Craig to go ahead and read that proclamation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so proclamation. Whereas the American Legion was chartered by Congress on September 16th, 1919 as a wartime veterans organization based on the 4 pillars of Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, National Security, Americanism, and Children and Youth. And whereas the American Legion has become a prominent community service organization with more than 2.5 million members in over 14,000 posts worldwide, supporting a variety of programs to benefit our nation's veterans, its service members and their families, the youth of America and its citizens. And whereas Legionnaires uphold their ideals of freedom and democracy while working to make a difference in the lives of all Americans. And whereas the city of Milwaukee enjoys a strong partnership with the American Legion Post 180 and its affiliated units and organizations. And whereas the 2021 observance of the American Legion Day provides an opportunity to recognize the Legionnaires in our community for their many civic contributions. Now, therefore, I, Mark Gamba, Mayor of the City of Milwaukee, a municipal corporation of the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim September 16th, 2021 as American Legion Day in the city of Milwaukee, and do hereby commend its observance to all citizens of the Dogwood City of the West.
I would like to add a little bit to that, Mayor.
Sure.
As commander of the Milwaukee Post, I thank the city for this proclamation. The American Legion is proud to be a partner of the city of Milwaukee for 60+ years. We have been here and we want to stay and support all the efforts that our citizens of this beautiful city do. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Very welcome. Thank you. All right. And thanks for reading that, Jerry.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm trying to, too many things on my desktop. Our next item is Constitution Week, a proclamation. This will be presented by the Daughters of the American Revolution, Susanna Lee Barlow, Chapter Regent Phyllis Hines.
Thank you, Mayor. Constitution Week was initiated by the Daughters of the American Revolution. The DAR is a patriotic organization that encourages education and historic preservation in communities across America. In 1955, the President General of the Daughters of the American Revolution adopted a project to promote the observance of the U.S. Constitution with a Memorial Week beginning on the anniversary of the signing of this document, September 17th. She asked DAR chapters, committees, and members to study, teach, and discuss the U.S. Constitution. She also encouraged members to invite their governors and mayors to issue proclamations celebrating the Constitution. Constitution Week was officially declared by President Eisenhower on August 2nd, 1956. Across the United States, all citizens are encouraged to ring bells on September 17th at 1 p.m. their local time in celebration of the Constitution. This chapter usually rings bells with first graders at our local elementary school. Last year, our chapter members scheduled a Zoom meeting to ring bells together. We'll need to be creative again this year, but we will ring bells. Thank you, Mayor, for signing the Constitution Week proclamation. Would you like to read it or would you like me to?
You're welcome to read it.
Oh, Scott pulls it up.
Stand by. Can you see it?
I see it.
Okay.
Whereas we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, did ordain and establish a Constitution for the United States of America. And whereas September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution by a convention of the states. And whereas it is fitting to recognize this essential document on the anniversary of its adoption in accordance with Public Law 915, which guarantees that a proclamation will be issued annually by the President of the United States, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Mark Gamba, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas, in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim September 17th through 23rd, 2021 as Constitution Week in the City of Milwaukie, and do commend its observance by all citizens. In witness thereof, and with the consent of the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, I have hereunto set my hand on this 7th day of September 2021. Thank you very much, Mayor Gamba.
You're very welcome. Good job reading the proclamation. All right. City manager updates. Ann, do you have anything?
Sorry, yes. A couple of things. One is during our last meeting, there were a couple of individuals who came to the meeting. I'm going to address it now because we will have individuals who are going to want to speak on the same topic during your open comment period. So I just wanted to give them the update before open comment. So the first piece is regarding roosters. And I wanted to call out a thank you to our co-compliance officer, Tim Sawyers, for his continued work on this issue. He is out of the office today, so that's why you're hearing from me. So the case that was discussed during the last council meeting about the rooster noise on, I believe it was Jefferson, the judge ruled that the city did not prove its case that a violation occurred based on the evidence presented. This citation was issued as a moment in time, so the ruling doesn't prevent the city from issuing another citation for a different rooster crowing event, should there be continued crowing events. Code enforcement is working with the city prosecutor to see what the next steps may be on that front. But the short answer is the judge heard the case and we didn't make a strong enough case. So he's now going back to the drawing board to understand what case we need to make if this is going to continue to be an issue in the neighborhood. Any questions about that council wanted to have? Okay. Tim is continuing to work on this. I would continue to send individuals who are having issues to Tim in particular. I know that one of the neighbors has been working on this item, but I've heard from several individuals, and I just encourage them to also reach out to Tim and to continue to have their experiences noted to Tim as he's working with the owner of the existing rooster. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, that's all I have today.
Okay, thanks. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member statements regarding city business. Those wishing to speak, please email ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov or raise your hand in Zoom or write a comment in the Zoom chat to indicate that you wish to speak. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during the community comments may be new, the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. Scott, how many do we have? Who do we have?
Mr. Mayor, I'm aware of two individuals who I see both of them in our attendees list. And just in the order that they contacted us, I see Mr. Haney Selbach's hand is up. And so I see him, but Howard Landhoff have been in communication with us first. So I might suggest that just in that order, they come first. So I will promote Mr. Landhoff to the panel here so he can be seen and talk. So let's give him a second to come in.
Scott, are you ready for me to begin?
Yes, Mr. Landhoff, we can hear you. I'm working on, you sent me a link to a website you wanted me to share, and I'm having a little difficulty getting that. So then,
Well, why don't I, Scott, if you let me share,
Yep.
I will just share. If you can enable, put me in
Yep.
there. Okay,
I'll make you a co-host.
great.
And Mr. Mayor, I forgot to mention before, I have the timer up. So if you wanted me to use the 3-minute timer, I have that ability, or not.
That's all right, Scott. I'll keep track of it on my end. On this particular one, this is an item that's been something I've been hearing about, I think, as long as I've been mayor, from a variety of different people. And I think Mr. Landhoff is intending to not only raise the issue again, but propose a potential solution. So I'm prepared to give him a little more time, since in my mind, he represents a whole bunch of people.
Okay.
I want to introduce to the City Council the concept of No Idle Milwaukee, or idle-free Milwaukee. Many people in Milwaukee and around the country are unaware and unconcerned that by idling their cars when parked, they're contributing to climate change. My premise is to make it illegal to idle a car for more than 2 or 3 minutes while the car is parked. This would be more of a public awareness law than one that is strictly enforced, similar to the law that is used in Vancouver, BC. And if you decide that this is a good idea, this would be a groundbreaking idea and raising the bar action for future Oregon legislation, and would put Milwaukee on the map as a leader in the area of climate change. Thus, the idea is to change the way people think through education and a new law to help enforce the way people think about idling their cars. So as this says here, it's your turn, turn it off. It's time to rethink idling. So restarting, when I go to, if I'm on 224, I want to get on 224 and there's a long light, I turn my engine off because I know it's going to be a minute or two. So 10 seconds of idling wastes more fuel than restarting. And warming up, even in cold weather, engines need 30 seconds to warm up. And, you know, many people turn their cars on, leave them in their driveways, even though it's not that cold here in Oregon. It doesn't happen as much anymore here. And damaging, turning your car off is far better than for the engine than letting it run. So over here on this side, it says 2 minutes spent idling is equal to 1 mile of driving. And where does idling happen? It happens everywhere. Drive-ins, driveways, banks, car washes, schools, trains, malls, bridges, parking lots. I see people when I'm walking down the street and they're sitting in their car texting with their engine on. And I sometimes want to go up and tell them that it's hard, it's not good for the environment. However, there's just so many people it's happening with that I'm feeling overwhelmed. So that's one of the reasons why I'm coming to you, because I am feeling overwhelmed. And 12 million gallons of fuel is wasted by idling in the United States every day. 12 million gallons, a lot of gas. And that's equal to 18 Olympic-sized swimming pools filled with fuel, or 387,000 barrels of foreign imported or domestic, because we get a lot of domestic now, of oil. And it's also $32,680 a day that is spent idling. And so I'm going to stop this share and see if I can get my next one ready in a little bit. So I just want to talk to you for a little bit and tell you what I've learned. I first brought this before the Lake Road NDA, and they were very supportive. And I think it was either Kathy, I think maybe you were there, Kathy Hayes. I think you were the one that was there. There was a council member who was also very helpful in helping me find that I didn't know this, that Oregon has a no idle law for trucks and buses. If you go to a school, you'll see that all the school buses, they turn their engines off right away. They don't keep it on at all. And there's a lot of other cities in the United States that are doing this. So we're not alone in this idea. They have no idle laws in Salt Lake City. And you can't idle your car for more than 2 minutes in an hour, or you get a $160 fine. For the first one's a warning, then it's a $160 fine, and the third one's a $210 fine. And there's also other small cities in Utah or towns like Milwaukie that have no idle laws. In Vermont, they have one also for the whole state, and they allow 5 minutes per hour. And it's a $10 fine, the second one's $50, and the third one is $100. And I have friends that live in Vermont, and I called them up to ask them about this, and they told me that they didn't know anything about it. They never even heard of it. And then another person who I talked to in Vermont, he told me that yes, it exists, and he knew about it. And the state official I talked to, so I called the state, they were very frustrated by the lack of support that they found in the state government for it. Washington, D.C. has a no idle law also. I didn't know that. New York City has one, but like Vermont, it's not heavily enforced. And I'm going to see if I can figure out how to share my next share. It's going to take me a minute here to get to it. It shouldn't be too long. Okay. All right. I'm going to share my next one. This is the second one. It's the only one I have. See if I can get it over here. Okay. So this is my favorite one of them all. And this comes from Vancouver, BC, and actually just from BC. In British Columbia, they have a lot of idle-free laws. And when I was in Vancouver, I saw signs like this, no idling. And they're everywhere in front of hotels. And I thought it was really great. And here's another one, idle-free city, turn engine off, City of Vancouver, 1 day. 1 day Vancouver, whatever that is. And here's another one. And this is for trucks. So the first one I showed you, we had a car. This was for a car. And then we have the other one for buses. And then I showed you the other one for trucks. So they have them for everybody. And they put these all around the town. And it's really great. And you can see this one's been around for a long time. And to make this city idle-free, it really takes a whole community to pull this together. And I'm willing to help by going to the farmer's market and setting up a booth for information. And by publicizing just the idea, maybe in the Milwaukie pilot, writing an article. I'd be happy to write an article about it, or maybe someone who's a better writer than I would want to take that up and write an article in the Milwaukie pilot just to raise awareness to people. I feel it's really important for our planet that action be taken. And I thought, well, first this could be in Milwaukee, and then maybe Portland, when they see what Milwaukee's doing, would follow suit, and other suburbs, and then maybe the state of Oregon would take the lead and make this a state law. However, I think it has to start locally with someone like us to do this. And as I was saying, that in Vancouver,
Howard,
yes,
it's been substantially longer than 6 minutes.
all right. I just want to make one last comment, then I'm done. In Vancouver, BC, the idle-free bylaw is enforced by city parking enforcement and mostly runs on a complaint basis. However, if a patrol officer is in the area and sees a car idling, they will enforce it with a ticket that is much like a parking ticket. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Scott, who's next?
I believe it's Haney Selbach, and apologies for mispronouncing them. I'm going to promote them to the panel. Mr. Lanoff, I'm going to put you back as a attendee.
I'm sorry I didn't show my picture before. At least you get to see it for a minute.
Mr. Selbach, are you able to?
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yep.
All righty. Well, thanks everyone for your time. Since I last spoke at the city council meeting, I have moved out of Milwaukee. I've had a very negative experience living there. The last year has been quite dreadful. You know, rather than reiterating what I said last time, I just think it's worth it to note that what we were told to do by Ann Ober earlier in this call was exactly what we've been told to do for almost a full calendar year now. There's actually no change in response. It's almost like a transcript, just a repeated sentence. You know, I'm sure Tim is working hard, but I have sent Tim, and other neighbors have sent Tim videos. We have sent Tim audio. We have filed formal complaints. We've done everything he's asked of us. So if the city did not provide sufficient evidence during the court hearing, I think that falls on Tim, and that's just being completely honest. We've all put our faith in Tim, and at this point, it just really feels like everyone's kicking the can down the road. I spoke with Tim. You know, he basically did not provide any timeline. We still have no time frame, no path forward, pure ambiguity. It's really distressing. You know, I've since left Milwaukee. I think I'll be happier for it. But for the sake of everyone else who's going through this, you know, God help you. I hope you at least get a time frame. I hope you at least get some clarity instead of living in a sea of ambiguity while we do everything that's asked of us. So thanks everyone for your time. Best of luck in the future. You know, I know the metropolitan area has grown quite a bit, so maybe it's difficult for some cities to adjust. Good luck. Thank you.
So, Mr. Selbach? Oh. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that this was about roosters, but right.
We have more hand raised, Mr. Mayor. 2 more now. I'm going to promote Chris Desiderati. And then after that, I do see that Graham Lola's hand has been raised too.
Chris, you're available.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. Thanks. I'm gonna turn my timer on real fast. All right, thanks, Mayor and Council, for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I respect a lot what you guys do. I'm a public employee too, and I also happen to be the neighbor that lives opposite our lovely rooster neighbors opposite of Hanny. My wife and I bought a house in Milwaukie 2 years ago. Absolutely love it here. We want to stay here for a long time, and I've done as much as I can, submitting complaints to Tim, and it's a bit out of remorse that I'm talking today, because I feel like if I had gone to that hearing at the time when Hanny was there and given my 2 cents too, maybe the judge would have felt differently. But I actually expected the rooster to be crowing during this meeting as I'm sitting in our office room in our house, because you can hear it inside of our house with our windows closed and doors closed. And I would just encourage the city to consider clarifying part of their code that could have easily given, no ambiguity about this. I have no problem with people keeping chickens, but roosters are pretty loud. And I volunteer our backyard if the city would like to set up any recording devices in it just to hear this noise themselves. And I'm willing to keep working on this because I don't want to leave, and I want to be a good neighbor. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Scott, who's next?
Graham, Lola, and I'll promote them to the panel. And Mr. Desiderati, I'm going to put you back in the attendee section.
Mr. Lola, go ahead.
Sir, you are muted. We can't hear you.
There we go. Hi. I too was here because of the roosters in the neighborhood. And I sent an article from Newsweek, I believe, about how loud roosters do crow. And I sent it to Scott. He said he passed it on to you guys. He probably did, but I mean, I think the thing is, yeah, this is one incident, but you got to look at it is what if another neighbor on the next street over or next door or 2 houses away, I mean, at some point, it becomes more than just one rooster or two, or I'm not sure how many are over there. It's like Hanny, I was sorry he hung up because he had recorded that rooster, and I'm sure he told me there was over 100 crows in like an hour. I mean, it's just crazy. So if you look at the bigger picture, I mean, eventually there's going to have to be something done about roosters. So I just encourage you to maybe start now.
It's kind of annoying, like a barking dog.
Yeah, and it's similar decibels, I know.
Yeah.
And similar decibels to a lawnmower. So it'd be like having somebody run their lawnmower in the yard next to you 100 times a day. I totally get it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's disturbing. We don't mind the chickens, but the rooster is hard.
Yeah. I think council was under the impression that our noise ordinance took care of that. I know back when I was keeping chickens, every time we ended up with a rooster, as soon as we knew it was a rooster, we went ahead and got rid of it because we knew that it was going to cause issues. So it's pretty unusual, actually. But we'll see if we have to take another look at our noise ordinance or exactly why the judge didn't feel like the case was not proven.
Yeah, she took a couple of weeks to think about it, and I believe Hanny told me that she wasn't aware of any of the ordinances here, because I think she lives out in, I think he said Oregon City, and I also think he said she has chickens. So, but out in Oregon City, that could be a lot of acreage out there too. But,
right. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah. Well, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents. So
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, Scott, do you have anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I am looking at the Okay, we're coming back. The laptop that brings the feed to the YouTube lost internet, but it's reconnecting. 1 second. Okay, and I'm just gonna go double check with Josh that we're good. I'll be right back. I apologize about that, Mr. Mayor. We are good to go again.
All righty. And we are on to the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes the minutes of the City Council for July 20th, 2021 goal setting, July 20th, 2021 regular session, August 3rd, 2021 work session, August 3rd, 2021 regular session, and August 10th, 2021 study session. It also includes a resolution appointing Nicole Birdsall to the Arts Committee. I knew I was going to do that. A resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for the maintenance of the Kronberg Park multi-use path, and a resolution authorizing the transfer of Hoodview Disposal and Recycling's franchised service area to Waste Connections and amending the list of franchised haulers. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? I've lost Desi. There he is. Desi, you good? Okay. Couldn't see you. Sorry. Then I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Our next item is the Oak Lodge Water Service District Governance Change Resolution. This will be presented by Oak Lodge District Engineer Jason Rice.
Hi, actually, I think we're going to start with Paul, but thanks for your time, everyone. And we've been talking about this for some time, so.
Thanks, Jason. Good evening, Mayor Gamba and fellow councilors. I'm Paul Gornick, President of the Oak Lodge Water Services Board of Directors. With me today are Mark Knudsen, Board Treasurer, wave your hand, Mark, and Jason Rice, District Engineer. We'd like to thank you for consideration of the resolution of support for our effort to change our governance structure to an authority. Forming an authority will allow Oak Lodge Water Services to preserve our existing customer base by limiting the risk of withdrawal of customers through annexation or incorporation. It will protect the integrity of the district's existing capital investments, and it will help us plan for future capital investments to meet the long-term water service needs of our community. As you've seen from our previous presentation, staff from both Oak Lodge and City of Milwaukie have looked at the provision of services in the overlap area, which is primarily the Island Station neighborhood. Our proposal consists of having Milwaukie and Oak Lodge continue to serve their current customers in that overlap area. This approach of no change in water service providers allows the city and Oak Lodge to continue to reliably provide cost-efficient services to these customers and avoids the need to construct new, otherwise duplicate infrastructure. This collaborative approach to serving our customers not only saves everyone money, but also limits our environmental impact by taking advantage of existing infrastructure and avoids the need for additional energy-intensive pumping. Our district attorney has worked with the city to draft a resolution that's before you this evening. Finally, we believe we have been in coordination with the Oak Lodge Governance Project Group that's evaluating options for annexation or incorporation within our service area. The governance group specifically chose to exclude water services from the portfolio of services that would be provided by a future city. As such, formation of an authority is consistent with and does not preclude annexation or incorporation within the Oak Lodge service area in the future. In summary, we think that formation of authority will be a win-win solution, a solution that will benefit the city, Oak Lodge, and the citizens of the community. On behalf of the board of Oak Lodge, we sincerely appreciate your support. At this time, we would like to answer any additional questions you might have come up with about this effort.
Anybody? Lisa?
Well, I have a question that I think is maybe more for our attorney. The language in the resolution at RS 50, at the bottom, section 1, hereby consents to the inclusion of all or any portion of the territory within the city that lies within the boundaries of the Oak Lodge Water Services District. That sounds really broad, and I'm a little surprised that we're not including a map so that we're defining what that is. Do we not think there's a potential for some dispute down the line about what exactly that is? Is there something that pins this agreement to a map and to a specific list of properties?
I can try to answer that. We do have the current resolution with the City of Milwaukie for the services of the properties we're talking about, and it does have a map and a reference to the tax lots and properties. We took it, it was actually thought about during the process, that there was a question, well, how many lots would we be talking about if there were future development? And there was, I think, 2 properties that could have potentially developed that we ended up, Peter and I talked about it was best served by Milwaukie, but I suppose those are the only 2 that are really up for any amount of question. So.
I think the intent for the resolution is to maintain the status quo in terms of district or soon to be authority served properties and properties that the city currently serves. And it's largely limited by infrastructure.
Right. In the cases of those 2 properties, Milwaukie has a water line in front and we don't and wouldn't want to build one. So.
Okay, so you're saying there's no, I mean, I will tell you, it sounds a little funny to me that we're not more precisely defining what the properties are. I mean, I guess this language in the whereases about portions receive water and sanitary sewer. I mean, I guess if there's a dispute down the line, it would be defined by that, like what ones already receive services. But I guess it strikes me as a little odd that we're not including a map or a list of properties, you know, a list of addresses or something. But if everybody's comfortable with it, I'm not going to hold it up for that.
It's a somewhat complex map, I think. It would probably require multiple maps to try and define it. Wouldn't that be true, Jason?
Well, the map that's included with the services resolution just goes back to 2014. It is on one map, but it includes, I think, 8 or 9 different types of hatching. But then there is a list, like what I presented, similar to what I presented at the last city council meeting. But it's each tax lot is identified by the services that's currently being provided. Peter just had that thought. He goes, well, how many lots, might develop in the future? And we kind of picked off 2, but there need to be some deconstruction of like garages to make it happen. But then, when he and I looked at who was providing services to the adjacent neighbors, it was Milwaukie for water. And we just kind of kept leaning back on this status quo because these do pop up. Like if there were a lot that was already developed and provided services by either of us, and let's say if it were to be demolished and then partitioned, the district has no interest in changing who's currently providing the service. So.
Any other questions? Okay, then if that is the case, thank you, gentlemen. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution approving the formation of a joint water and sanitary authority in Oak Lodge that would include territory within the city of Milwaukie.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the resolution approving the formation of a joint water and sanitary authority in Oak Lodge that would include territory within the city of Milwaukie. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, our next item is the emergency declaration code adoption, and this will be presented by our events coordinator, Brenna Cruz.
Everyone. So at the last working session or study session, forgive me, on August 10th, we presented a draft code to revise the city's existing emergency declaration ordinance. And with that, we were asked to provide some additional clarity regarding the difference between an emergency and a disaster, as those are outlined in the code ordinance. And with those, the real sort of difference is the scope and impact of the event and the city's ability to respond with our internal resources or limited resources from external agencies. That would be essentially an emergency, and a disaster would be one of a broader scope, a larger area of impact, and we would definitely be relying on external agencies and partners for support with response and recovery for that. So those were the additional information that we were asked to provide. And so with that, I don't know if there are any other existing questions or proposed changes to the current code as it is drafted.
Anybody? All right, thank you, Brenna. I guess, well, hang on for a second. Then I would entertain a motion.
I move the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code chapter 1.15 emergency operations and declaring an emergency.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code chapter 1.15 emergency operations and declaring an emergency. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Ms. Ober, would you please read by title only the ordinance twice?
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending Municipal Code Chapter 1.15, emergency operations and declaring an emergency. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending Municipal Code Chapter 1.15, emergency operations and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Stauffer, would you please poll the council? Mr. Stauffer is
not working. That's not working out.
Ms. Ober, would you please poll?
Yes. So sorry in advance when I go in the wrong direction. Councillor Beatty.
Aye.
Councillor Faulkner.
Aye.
Council President Kathy Heisey.
Aye.
Councillor Nicodemus.
Aye.
And Mayor Mark Gamba.
Aye.
It passes 5-0 unanimous, and I'm seeing if he has any other words. Nope, that's it. That's what I have to say. Before we move away from this, though, if that's it, which I believe it is, I have somebody on this call who I'm not going to have on this call again, and I wanted to just call her out for 1 minute. I would not have survived the 2020 pandemic without Brenna Cruz. Wouldn't have happened. I deeply, deeply value and appreciate how much time and effort you put into keeping this place upright over the last 18 months of absolutely crazy emergencies. And for those of you who don't know, she is going to go do this full time. So she is going to go do emergency management work full time, and she is absolutely going to nail it. She is excellent at it. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank her for her very hard work over the last many, many moons. Thank you, Brenna.
Yeah, thanks, Brenna. That's what I was intending to do too. So we really appreciate all the work you've done, not only your extraordinary work in these long lists of emergencies, but also the work you've done on events. You've done a great job on events. And, you know, there's a lot going on in this last two years. It's felt like 2 decades. Was an exceptional time to be doing your job. We really appreciate the work you did.
Thank you. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to not only serve the community, but also my fellow colleagues as well. So thank you.
Thanks. And we wish you well in your next adventure. All right. Our next item is a public hearing. It's Title 14 Sign Code Amendments, a resolution. The public hearing on the proposed amendments to the code is called to order. The purpose of the public hearing is to take public comment on proposed sign code amendments. Does any council member wish to announce actual or potential conflict of interest? I see none. This staff report will be given by our planning manager, Laura Weigel. No? Is that not who will be given by? I don't see Laura. Scott, can you hear us? Scott is frozen in Never Never Land. Okay, let me see.
He is very frozen. And it says that everything has crashed on his end. So can you stop for a moment and give him a second to try and get back on? Thank you.
Yeah, I tell you what, let's take a 5-minute break.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
So don't go out of the meeting, just
Okay, on there.
Cool. And I think where we were at was that I was announcing that the staff report would be given by our planning manager, Laura Weigel.
Good evening, counselors. Thanks for having me. I haven't seen you in a while, so it's nice to be at the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and get this started. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see what we've got here. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So tonight we are here to talk about the Title 14 in the sign code. And I will just walk you through a brief presentation about this. Let's see. Okay, so what is the purpose of the sign code? It's to regulate the design, quality of materials, construction, installation, maintenance, and electrification, illumination type, size, number, and location of all signs visible from a right-of-way or a lot in the city. So there are a lot of things that we regulate in the sign code. And what we wanted to talk to you specifically about tonight is a section of the sign code, which talks about conditional uses and community service signs. What kinds of signs are allowed for community service signs? And the reason that we're here for that is because back in 2006, the North Clackamas School District applied for a sign, an electronic sign at the Milwaukie High School. And that high school is located in a residential zone, and it's a community service use. At that time, in 2006, the sign was denied by the Planning Commission. It was approved by the City Council. Then the sign wasn't built, from what I understand, because there was a crash that was around the 2008 crash, and the sign did not get built, and the approval expired. Okay, so the sign never got built. So then, just recently, back in April, the school district came to the PC asking for an adjustment to the sign code to allow for this electronic sign. And at the hearing, the Planning Commission requested a little bit more information regarding this Category 4 designation that the school talked about as part of their application for requesting the sign adjustment. And so they came back in May for the second hearing with some more information about the Category 4, but the Planning Commission ultimately decided that the information that was brought forward still did not meet the criteria allowing for a sign adjustment. And then there was a lack of majority that evening, so it was a split 3-3 vote. So therefore, it was not granted that night. So then what happened is in June, staff was asked to recommend some adjustments to the sign code to allow specifically for the high school to potentially have an electronic sign. And it was just specifically for the high school. That was kind of the direction we were given. So what we did is we went back into the code and we looked at some amendments to Title 14 to allow the school as a community service use to have an electronic sign. And so the idea was to limit the size of the sign, and that was based on some other information on looking at the different sizes that were allowed in different areas of the city. Based on, we don't allow signs, illuminated signs in residential areas, but we do allow them some in commercial and some in manufacturing and a little bit in downtown. But that's all kind of based on limitations to the size. And so we looked at maximum square feet, which is the downtown zone, kind of looking at, well, that's the most equivalent zone that has a size of maximum square 20 feet as opposed to 60 or 50 feet or 60 feet in the two other zones. So we came up with a size of 20 square feet, and also only allowing one sign per CS community service use, meaning that the school would just be allowed one sign and that they must meet all of the design standards for electronic signs, which is the same as in the downtown mixed use area. So those were the changes that you see before us based on just trying to allow the high school specifically to get a sign, an electronic sign at the school. So we went to the PC and we talked about these ideas, and this Planning Commission does recommend approval to the council on the Title 14 amendments. They did have a couple of things that they wanted to point out. They wanted to clarify some language on the display portion of the sign, which we did, and you can see in the attached code that you have. They wanted to broaden the definition of the type of use, of the type of sign in a CSU. What does that mean? What is the definition of a school, or is it an educational institution? How are we defining that that portion of the sign code? And then also wanted to look at this category 4 designation, potentially for future discussions, not to be discussed at this point in time based on there's a lot of questions about how we would actually go about implementing that. So with that, we came back to kind of what you saw in the staff report. And we understand, staff looked at that, and we understand that the sign code heavily restricts electronic signs to limit their locations in the city. That's what our code tells us to do, is that the city has in the past, from what I understand and what the code tells us, that we do heavily restrict electronic signs throughout the city. And so that broadening the type of the definition of the CSU could increase the number of areas where electronic signs are allowed. And so we don't specifically support or have concerns about signs at additional locations. However, we haven't done any community engagement about school signs in other residential areas that are conditional uses. And then we haven't really looked at what constitute a qualifying educational institution. What does that mean? What does a school mean? How is that defined? What kind of definition are we looking at? And then we kind of have this limited capacity at this point to do an analysis on what different numbers of schools might be impacted based on changing the language to a broader language using the term educational institution. And so at this point in time, we are recommending approval of the proposed amendments per the ordinance and the findings. And so at that point, I will open it up to you all for questions. And I'm sorry I stumbled around that a little bit. I apologize. I think I got thrown by not being here at the moment that Scott said, and here's Laura. And then I was like, oh, anyway, so I apologize. So with that said, I ask you to open up, ask me any questions about it. I'm happy to clarify anything.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I'm looking at the strike through code, and I just want to make sure that E, so you have E, and it comes, this new section, subsection E, and it comes in with a footnote on the chart, the table at subsection C. And I guess my concern is that is E additional criteria on top of the limits of subsection of the table, or are they going to be able to be read as alternatives? Because the table calls for a monument or freestanding sign not to exceed 6 feet above ground, meaning not a sign up on a pole at 12 or 15 feet. And I just want to make sure that that also applies to this. We're talking about a monument sign. We're talking about a sign low to the ground, relatively low to the ground.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Okay. Well, if nobody else has questions, I will just get on my hobby horse about our sign code.
Hey, hang on. Before you do that, let's go through. We have a point at which we will have conversation, but let's, have we received any additional correspondence on this topic?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Does anyone wish to comment on the amendments to the sign code?
Mr. Mayor, I see no email, and I don't see any hands raised or comments in the chat.
All righty. Give it a second.
There are also no attendees in the room here.
Hot topic. All right. Then staff probably doesn't have any response to the testimony. So, council, do you have any more questions for staff per se? I guess I kind of do have a question. It verges on conversation, but I want to. So we did this because based on the Planning Commission hearing and the sort of attitude about everybody that everybody seemed to have about the sign was kind of a no duh. We should allow the sign to happen, but our code doesn't specifically allow it the way it is set up. So this was trying to be a quick fix for the high school to solve this problem. My concern is the way that it's currently written, it is literally for the high school, and that's it. So if tomorrow Linwood Elementary came in with the exact same request, we would either have to jump through the same hoops to create yet another very targeted piece of code, or tell them, no, they can't have a sign because our code doesn't allow it. And then they would ask, Milwaukie High School got a, so what I'm kind of wondering is there some, given that this is a type 3, and so that any school bringing this forward would have to go through the Planning Commission, a public hearing, neighbors would be notified, public conversation could take place. Is there a good reason to not allow this for schools of, say, a minimum size of X, let's call it 100 students, full-time students or full-time in-person students, or however you want to limit it, but something that literally says this has to be schools, not some other thing, and that they have to go through this type 3. Is there some good reason not to do this at this point?
If I could weigh in, if that's all right, Mary Gamba.
You're kind of the person I'm asking.
Okay, sorry. Just to make sure that was the case. I think that one of the concerns that I see is that we haven't actually done any outreach, nor to any of to the community to talk about the impacts of these signs in different neighborhoods if they were allowed. We also don't, like, if we had that number of 100 just that you threw out there, we would need to do kind of an assessment, I believe, of all the different schools and how that is defined, how many are there and where are they located. And then I think that since we don't really have the capacity to do that right now, we might, as to you said, have various groups come in wanting these signs repeatedly. But if it's just about the public hearing process, say you sent out, you say the number is 100 and you send out the notification and folks come out because some people, maybe the context isn't right in their neighborhood to actually allow for one of these signs, and people have some concerns about that. Even if they did have concerns about that, the Planning Commission would still need to approve that sign based on the criteria in our code. So that would still be their role because they're looking at the criteria in the code. So say they would approve it, even if neighbors weren't happy about it. So then they could appeal it, and that could be an individual could make that appeal. And if an individual were to make that appeal, it costs $1,000 to bring it to City Council, or an NDA could make the appeal and it's for free. But then the City Council would presumably have to approve it based on the criteria. or deny it based on the criteria, or approve it regardless of the criteria, in which case you're putting yourself into a situation where potentially, I'm not saying, I'm just trying to play out the worst case scenario and walk all the way through the situation. Potentially then that individual who had appealed it to the city council could take it to LUBA and make a case that based on your existing sign code, they should be able to have this, they shouldn't be able to have the sign. Or the school should be able to have the sign. So it would go to LUBA and it would get overturned. Sorry, I must make that up. But that's the gist of it. So just playing that all the way out, because right now, if we just put in that number 100, that actually is the code, that actually is the criteria. So there's not a lot of room for discretion within the code as it would be written.
So that brings up the question then, if we're writing code that has no discretion whatsoever, what's the point of having it be a type 3? If there's no discretion.
It's because the way it's written now is because of public hearing.
Right, but if you're telling me that the public hearing is meaningless, why make it a type 3?
It's a good question.
Well, I would, Mayor, this is Justin Garricky. I would say the reason why we're doing the type 3 is that there's a variety of design characteristics that need to be taken care of and some possible siting issues where we might work with the neighborhood to figure out where a sign would go for the business. That's happened in other contexts with the sign code. I think it's really important to note how we got here, and that's based on this application. This was a specific targeted amendment to the code to allow the high school to have a sign. It seems like a long time ago since we had initial discussions about this in the hearings before the Planning Commission. However, in order to bring this to you, to get to City Council within the 120-day clock, based on the school district's application, staff met, decided on a pathway, and put it in motion in about 10 days. Because we have required notices to Metro and a variety of other entities to get it to the Planning Commission that then gets it to you. Your point, I suppose, about Linwood, I believe Linwood is a public school, an elementary school, correct?
Yeah.
The applicant in this case knows we're going through this process. So it would be the same applicant if they were to come subsequent in time and say, hey, why don't you do this now for the elementary school? They know specifically we're doing this for the high school. And they have stayed their case to allow us to have this hearing to come to a decision on this code fix that's specific to the high school.
So let me, you lost me a little bit there because they were denied in the Planning Commission. So what's the 120-day clock on the appeal to us?
The appeal. We still have to come to a final land use decision, which is your decision on their appeal. That has to be within 120 days of the time they applied.
So rather than just doing the normal appeal process, the attempt was to adjust the code enough so that they could, by right, have the sign.
Correct. And that's what staff was tasked with. And they had a very short window to put that together. So there was no outreach to kind of expand the code. You know, I believe there are 6 or 7 other public schools in various neighborhoods that haven't really participated in this process. Contextually might not be the best setup for an electronic sign. In this particular location, overwhelmingly, the testimony at the hearing was, yes, we should have a sign here at the high school. So I don't think there was a big fear of people becoming upset that the high school would eventually get a sign.
And Justin, if I could just, I think the applicant did waive the 120-day clock so that we could do this, because what we have to do is we have to amend the sign code, and then they have to reapply to the Planning Commission. and go through another planning commission hearing based on the new sign code. So I think we understood from the beginning that the clock was being waived, but they're just waiting for us before they actually ask you all, go to the council and ask for a hearing from you all. So they're waiting for it to appeal it to you all. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Yeah, and that's fine. And it's not really kind of, I guess it's more of a philosophical question. And I can remember dealing with this clear back when I was on the planning commission. If code is written so prescriptively that if somebody asks for a thing, they get it, why do the planning commission hearing at all? And I want to take that a step further. I do believe there are a lot of instances where a human decision based on specific circumstances actually matters. I want to say that again. A human decision based on actual circumstances of an individual sighting, in this case of a sign, actually matters. And if we can't write code that actually allows that to occur and has the planning commission meeting be actually of any point whatsoever, other than telling them what kind of material they have to use, I mean, that's all stuff that could be written into the code. It doesn't make sense to have the decision of yes or no, you can't have the sign. That we're saying is a slam dunk. The question is, where exactly, what color is it going to be? What's the material? That doesn't make sense to me. There are lots of times when a human being looking at a thing says, that doesn't make sense. We should not do that there. And there are the times when they say they should. And I believe our code should be written so that human factor actually matters.
And the sign code as it is actually does have a discretionary portion of the sign code that could apply, and people can make arguments based on certain things. It's just that in the case of the school district, we didn't think, or the planning commission didn't think, that they made the argument based on the existing criteria. And one of them, if I can remember correctly, was about an undue burden that the school would have an undue burden, and the planning commission didn't feel that they had met that criteria. But in certain cases, there is some discretion to make an argument if they can prove that they have an undue burden. It's just that the planning commission in this case didn't think that they had done that.
But so, you know, what we're talking about, we're worried about signs, electronic signs being disruptive to a neighborhood. We're worried about people's sleep being disrupted because there's a bright, shiny sign outside their bedroom window or across the street or whatever. That's the crux of the issue. But what the argument apparently had nothing to do with that. It had to do with undue burden, which I'm not even sure what that means in this context, let alone how I would prove it, even if, you know.
The undue burden, there's another catch to that phrase, and I'm going to paraphrase here because I don't have the code in front of me with that section. But they have to prove that they have an undue burden that others in the underlying zone don't have. And I will add that it's very prescriptive. The code that we're looking at for the application was written to not allow this type of sign. It was a very high burden. And staff have looked at this amendment process through that lens to try to limit it, because the prior code language was written to be very prescriptive to not allow signs.
So the question, I think, is whether or not the council is, or Mayor Gamba, you're proposing to allow more signs, allow these signs to happen where they haven't been able to happen in the past. And we don't have a really good, our code right now is not set up perfectly to do that without some discretion and contextualization, which would take a lot more analysis, I believe, in order to get that part right.
So yes, I do think that schools have, well, we all know, right? We try and communicate with our citizenry all the time. on all kinds of issues. And we can't do it. We send emails, we do door hangers, we put something in the pilot, we do every possible thing. We get something in the paper. People don't see it. I can only imagine that the schools deal with exactly the same issue of trying to communicate to their entire parent body. And I can imagine, given that in this day and age, a lot of kids are still dropped off at the school, that a reader board sign that communicates something important is probably a pretty solid way to get messages out to their parent body. So I was not the least bit surprised that the high school requested one. And it seems like a process that would allow such a sign at a school if the neighborhood was comfortable with it. And I agree, there should be a planning commission hearing, and the parents and the people in the neighborhood should be listened to. The law should be written in such a way that that actually matters, that what the neighborhood thinks matters, what the planning commissioners think after they hear all the testimony actually matters. It should not be so prescriptive that it's either a slam dunk one way or a slam dunk the other way.
So then, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, but what I was thinking is that if the council agreed that, say, that 100 number was the threshold, like we could rework the code to say that, then the next, if we don't want to get into trouble with the approval process, right? Then we would make it a type 2 process as opposed to a type 3 process, and it would be allowed outright. There would be no notification. And if that were the case, we would be doing that without actually speaking with anyone around all of the schools where these might be allowed. And I feel a little uncomfortable with that.
Which is not what I am not promoting that in any way, shape, or form.
I think it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit more. Let's take it in steps. The reason why it is so target specific is because staff did not have time to develop a discretionary process that involved a lot of back and forth. And so to limit it significantly to just the high school was a way of ensuring that what Laura just talked about, we don't go to a type 2 process where schools elsewhere in the city can just get a sign outright. So that's the limiting factor. To develop the discretionary process, I think takes a lot of outreach and a lot of staff time. And that's happening at a time right now where we're outreach maxed and staff maxed. And so keeping it targeted to just the high school is a way of preventing some unforeseen consequences. Anytime you open up the door to something that's meant to be small, there are unforeseen consequences. People much smarter than me write all sorts of code and are able to give a lot of thought to what those unintended consequences are. We didn't have the time to do that in this situation.
And my recollection of all of this is that when it initially came to us was that it was supposed to be a quick fix. It wasn't supposed to be encompassing of all the schools. I don't remember us giving that direction to staff. So this as a solution, I know it's not elegant, but it is functional, and it seems to me like it meets my expectations anyway of what we asked of staff, given the time, given the amount of staff time it would take, all of the various criteria that were involved in this particular situation.
Certainly, there are lots of other changes that could happen to the sign code to alleviate the mayor's concerns. I see Councilor Beatty shaking her head. There's a lot of things that could be done. We don't have the time right now to dive into that deep project or the staff.
And I do have the sign code. We're supposed to look at the sign code, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years out. Sorry, I just want to say it's in my work plan. It's just not in it in the next couple of years.
and who knows, maybe it rises up in the work plan to a certain extent, but that rising in the work plan is not going to allow the school to have a sign within the window that we're trying to get them to sign. And I think staff has looked at this project from the get-go as a Band-Aid for this one project. Admittedly, it's not the best way to make policy or to do direction, but you know, it happens in legislatures and governments all the time. When a situation arises, then there's a desire for a remedy. But the sideboards on that are that you keep the remedy very narrowly tailored to prevent unforeseen consequences from occurring.
Okay, I'm going to leave this alone, but I want to say one last thing. This is a result of badly written code to begin with. And so going forward, I would want us to constantly be thinking about, does what a human being think 5 years, 10 years, 12 years after this code was written, or the group of human beings that have to live around whatever decision is being made, matter? And if so, the code should not be written in such a way that it is either a slam dunk one way or as a slam dunk the other way, that it is literally a decision of the Planning Commission based on the best information they can get at the time. Because I fought with this ad nauseum when I was on the Planning Commission. I would have voted with the Allow group where I am on the Planning Commission today, just in pure protest of badly written code. So Lisa, go ahead.
So I don't disagree with, you know, what you said about what the code should do. I'm pretty much in agreement with that. I'm pretty much in agreement with, you know, this code needs revision. Were you on Planning Commission in 2006 when it came? Yeah. So we voted no because they wanted a pole sign at that point over on Harris or Washington.
Oh, when the high school asked for it. No, I don't think I was on Planning Commission.
Okay. Well, I mean, I will say for easily 15 years, I have been saying we need to revise our sign code. We have done other interim fixes to fix, and nobody on this meeting hates electronic signs more than me. I absolutely hate those billboards on 99E. I tried everything to keep those from going up there.
That I was on commission for.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't like electronic signs. I do think we ought to have time limits, like they turn off at 9 p.m. They don't turn on before 7 p.m. or something like that. I think there's a lot of ways we should probably regulate them more than we do. But this is about fixing one. I mean, we can't fix, the whole sign code is a big project. And although frankly, I think Lake Oswego has done it right, and we can probably copy a lot from Lake Oswego because theirs got challenged all the way to the Supreme Court and it was upheld. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel, but it is a big project to revise our sign code in the amount of, with what it needs. We've done a lot of Band-Aid fixes. Denny brought 2 or 3 of them to us in his tenure to address the billboards and things like that. So I think, it's not great, but it's what we need to do to just let this project happen. And because we don't have the staff capacity to do it at this time. But I do hate the electronic signs. And the one other thing I would say is, it goes to your point that the neighborhood should get to weigh in. I mean, one thing that makes me more comfortable about this one is the neighbors potentially impacted mostly have big hedges or fences. So the impact on the people across Lake Road is, not significant. You think about Llewellyn School or Ardenwald School, where it would be in some facing people's bedrooms or living rooms or whatever. So I do think, I'm given more comfort in terms of letting this one go by the context of where the sign will go.
Anybody else?
Are we closing the public hearing? Because I think we've ventured way out from questions to staff and into discussion. So I would move to close the public hearing on the proposed sign code amendments.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on the proposed sign code amendments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Public comment part of the public hearing on the proposed sign code amendments is closed. Sorry about that.
Good night. Thank you.
You might want to get out, Laura.
Just
Sorry?
a sweet reopen.
Sorry?
It wouldn't maybe be a terrible thing for you to hang out for a few more minutes.
Oh, you want me to stay? Okay.
Yeah.
They haven't voted on the ordinance yet.
That was just to close the testimony.
Bye.
Sorry.
Bye. Thanks. Appreciate it. Sorry about that.
All right. So sorry about that. I definitely jumped the gun.
No, I think you started with kind of a question to staff, and then it,
evolved.
But yeah, I'm right there with you, Lisa. I think that it's clear why we're here right now, and I think that we just need to go ahead and move forward with this one, and then Mayor and whoever else, we might actually have a really robust conversation about whether or not this sort of thing should be a type 3. I think that that's a worthy conversation for for a council, whether it's this one or a future one, to have with our community. But it's a much bigger conversation with our community. So I'm ready to go ahead and move, make a motion to move this forward, unless there's somebody else who wants to talk.
Anybody else? Any other questions? All right, go ahead and make the motion.
I move for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code chapter 14.08.090 conditional and community service use signs for the purpose of clarification and allowing electronic display signs for community service uses that are considered public high schools. File number ZA-2021-003.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code chapter 14.08.090 conditional and community service use signs for the purpose of clarification and allowing electronic display signs for community service uses that are considered public high schools. File number ZA-2021-003. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Ms. Ober, would you please read the ordinance twice?
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending Municipal Code MMC Chapter 14.08.090, conditional and community service use signs for the purpose of clarification of and allowing electronic display signs for community service uses that are considered public high schools. File number ZA-2021-003. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending Municipal Code MMC Chapter 14.08.090, conditional and community service use signs for the purpose of clarification of and allowing electronic display signs for community service uses that are considered public high schools. File number ZA 2021-003.
Ms. Schnapper, would you please poll the council?
I will. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Still having some technical glitches, but you can hear me. So, Councillor Beatty.
Aye.
Councillor Nicodemus.
Aye.
Council President Heisey.
Aye.
Councillor Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor Gamba.
Aye.
Ordinance passed 5-0. Motion passed 5-0. Ordinance 2209.
All right. So thank you, Laura.
Thank you,
Laura. How with those might be last minute questions.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Thanks. So now we are back to council goals. Does anyone have further thoughts on that? just for the audience at home, we had begun this, we had re-begun this conversation during our work session. And we are in the position where council has chosen two goals to continue with, our equity and justice goal and our climate goal. And we're discussing a third potential goal. We have a split council at this point on that goal. There are three that believe we should continue with housing and two that believe we should move to parks because there is so much work being done currently on housing and that will continue to be done for the next couple, 3 years, regardless of whether it's a council goal. And the fact that we have some funding for housing. This council, I think rightly chooses to make something a goal based on a minimum of a 4-1 majority. And so we are at a little bit of an impasse with this. And the should we deadlock in this manner, will be that we will end up with two council goals moving forward, which again, in no way, shape, or form means we stop doing the work we're doing on housing. It just maybe potentially reduces some of the things we might add to that work. Nor does it frankly stop work we're doing on parks. We will continue to advocate for Milwaukie Bay Park to be built by the district, which theoretically is happening, and we will begin the process of designing and building out 3 of our city neighborhood parks because of money that we received or will receive through our state rep and state senator from the federal government. So that's where we are currently. And I am not seeing movement. Not that you're all frozen. I do think there's a little bit of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom in what Councillor Beatty said about it potentially being a good thing that we only have 2 council goals and that in 6 months or 9 months or a year, as new potentialities arise, either a goal could be added or we could go back to one. But this is where we land right now. Anybody, anything?
I think you summed it up.
All right. Well, I don't think we have any kind of a motion to make at this point. That will happen at a future council meeting. I remain entirely impressed by this council and the passion that everyone has for all of the hard work that is clearly needed in this world and the recognition of the limitations that a city our size has and the budget that we have. Completely other topic, but we would not be in this boat if we didn't have the stupidest tax law in America. All right. Well, if there are no changes, then I believe we can probably adjourn this meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.